Thank you, Rory. Okay, so yeah, I'm Andy Habeshaw. I work for Fife Climate Hub, and this is working with the media. So first of all, I thought I'd tell you a bit about Fife Climate Hub and Climate Action Fife, why media coverage is still important, a bit about your audience, the stories you can tell, how to tell your stories, aka the press release. I'll give you a bit of time to write your own press release, and then at the end we'll get questions on tips on spreading the word. Okay, so Fife Climate Hub is one of a number of hubs emerging across Scotland. We've been funded by the Scottish Government, and we started the Fife Climate Hub in June. There'll be a lot more starting up this year. We aim to empower community-led action on the climate crisis, and we're looking to build the capacity of existing community groups that are working on climate and deliver stronger collaboration between those groups. We're reaching beyond the climate engaged as well to grow a diverse network across Fife, and we're providing a voice for our members to influence local and national policy. We work in partnership with Climate Action Fife. Climate Action Fife, which is where Rory is from, is an ambitious 5-year programme of climate action. I think we're in year 3. You can tell me if I'm wrong, Rory.
2.5.
2.5, okay. So they are a diverse partnership of 12 organisations, of which FCCAN is a member, with unique strengths, locations and local networks. Together, we're tackling the key areas of greenhouse gas emissions, including energy, heat, food and transport. Now, if you would be so kind, do you think you could put your names and which group you belong to in the chat, please? I can't see the chat. Yes, okay. Just so that you can introduce to each other. Lovely, thank you. Are you in Fife, Louisa? No, okay. That's okay. Oh. Interesting. Are you in Fife, Mary? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine, Louisa, that's fine. We're all working towards the same goal. Oh, in the Netherlands. Did you hear about us from where did you hear about us? Well, we'll hear about that. Oh, Eventbrite. Okay. Okay. So so next, I thought I'd ask you how you felt about working with the media. Choose a picture and put a number in the chat. We've got some not sures, anxious, confused. Oh, somebody's up for it. Priya's up for it, but confused. Right, that's good. Not sure. Okay, 7 and 6. We've got skeptical. Some reservations. Okay, well, nobody's an angry Greta. That's good. Some people can be angry with the media, and that's fine. Well, it's yeah. Great. That's really good. Well, hopefully I can allay some of your anxieties and um, let confusions and even perhaps even skepticism tonight. I'll try my best anyway. So another question I was going to ask is why bother with media coverage? So a lot of people these days might say things like, well, we have a Facebook page or an Instagram, so we don't need to bother. Some people feel that you might have to pay to get in the newspapers. You have to pay and get an advert. Or they might just feel that they're too busy. They don't have time to write a press release or to work with the media at all. And another popular opinion, which is, I would say, was quite fair as well, is that newspapers aren't popular anymore, so it's a waste of time. Well, I think these are all valid points of view, but I do still think that there's some value in a press release, and it's usually when I'm doing some communications, it's usually the place I start. At least it gathers my thoughts and helps me create the language around any other channel which I'm going to use, such as social media or a blog. So why media coverage is important is because I think it's possible to reach more people with a simple press release. You can reach new audiences beyond Facebook and Instagram. And older people in particular, they tend to read the papers and not the social media. So if that's your audience, then you really need to get in the papers. But also having an article in the paper lends credibility to your stories. So people might feel that because you're in the paper, then it's been fact checked. And so then it's going to be more impressive than it's in Facebook, where people may trust it less. And also you can share your coverage on the social media. So once you get your article in the Courier, say, you can share that onto Facebook or Instagram. Well, you can't share links on Instagram, but you could share the pictures. Different papers have different patches, for instance. So the Dunfermline Press covers the Dunfermline area. You might want to be in St Andrews. You might have an event in St Andrews, so you've got your St Andrews Citizen, and then you've got the Courier, which covers all of Fife, but you have different editions and different reporters that cover different areas. So that's quite useful to get into those sort of different editions of the paper. And newspapers also have online coverage. For instance, the Courier and Kingdom FM have their own news section to their website. And if you build a relationship with a journalist, they might write a feature. And also a little tip is that the national press read the local press and pick up the stories. So think about where you get your news. Do you read it online? Is it social media, local papers, national papers, blogs, podcasts? You get it from the TV and radio. And if you think about it, each channel has a different way of talking to you. Sometimes it's more formal, sometimes it's casual and friendly, like on Facebook. So when you're writing your press release, think about how you'll write your press release for the type of channel that you're using and what the kind of language that you want to use. So if you were writing a press release for the Scotsman, you might want to be a bit more formal than if you were writing it for a Facebook post or for a more local paper. And also think about the tone of your organisation. You want to keep that consistent whenever you're writing across the board of all your channels. So are you a casual community group or a more formal community council? So also be consistent with your tone when you're quoting your members and when you're writing about your group. So quotes, we'll come on to that a bit later. So once you understand that your news needs to be tailored to the right channel, you can start to plan your press release. For example, your stories might be about your events or seasonal occasions, or winning an award or some funding that you've got. And this will be more straightforward. But the ones which will get the media really going are most likely to be the ones that are unique. They're a first, they're topical with what's going on at the moment. Perhaps the Olympics are going on, or it's to do with the flooding or whatever's happening in the news at the moment. And if it's heartwarming and a human interest, then they're going to love it. And as a community group, this is your strength. Local and national press will look to you to know their audience. After all, you are their audience too, after all. So be creative, chat to your group, find out what their other interests are and why they are part of the group. And this might uncover some interesting stories that can help you gain traction with your audience. And then once you've sussed this out, you need to look at who your audience actually is. So you may have many audiences, so be clear on which ones you're aiming your story at. What is your audience interested in? So if you're going for the Dunfermline Press, what is the audience in Dunfermline interested in? And what are your key messages? You've got to agree your key messages first amongst yourselves, amongst your group, and then tailor it to the media, to the local or national story, to St Andrews, or is it a Fife-wide story? So you might start with your press release with a Fife-based group or a Dunfermline Community Association. And key messages for things like a family event may include things like friendly, open to everyone, free, fun. And bear these in mind when you're writing. And last week, if you were on the call workshop last week, Rory shared a piece, a website from Climate Outreach called the 7 Segments, and it has some key information on climate audiences. So if you weren't here last week, I'll share that in the chat later if you want. Next, you begin to write your press release. So the formula is to get all of the key information into the first 3 paragraphs. Each paragraph is roughly a sentence. And to do this, you need to answer the 5 W's. Who, why, what, where, and when. And finally, you would want to ask how as well, but this might go somewhere else. For instance, how they need to book or sign up to your group. So I've written a sentence which I thought would kick off a press release. Nature lovers from Lochgelly are planting a butterfly meadow at the Lochore Meadows Country Park this week. On Saturday, January the 20th, members of the Lochgelly Nature Group will plant over 100 wildflowers at the park from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. People from across Fife are invited to join them. And then I would have a quote from someone in the group, perhaps the chairperson. And I would write the quote myself and say something like, "We have been so pleased that we can invite everyone because it's the first event of spring and we're really excited about spring." So then obviously you would send it to your chairperson, make sure they're okay with it. Maybe they want to write it differently or write something else, and agree what the quote is. And then beyond that, you start to write in your detail. So any more information that you might have about your event or your activity and how people can join, and any other background, if there's any other groups involved. And then you would, at the end, you put in editor's notes, which is you'd have standard to all your press releases. So a little bit about your information, probably the about part from your website or your Facebook page is the perfect thing to have at the end of your press release. And finally, you want to offer the press a photograph or a photo opportunity every time, if possible, because this is what sells the story to the editor. Because the reporter then has to go to the editor and say, I have a story and I've got a picture already, and it's written really well. I've got a quote and I've got a photo and I've got all the details. And they'll say, fine, just stick it in the paper as it is, if you're lucky, if you've done it well enough. So remember, you have a consistent tone. Who is your audience? Where and who you're sending your press release to. So I've written a press release and I'm quite happy for you to tear it apart. But if you want to have a read of it, Rory, are you able to share it in the chat? And you can see the editor's notes at the end. See if you think it addresses the 5 W's. Can everybody see it? Okay. I could put it on my screen. Do I get the information in the first 3 paragraphs though? Yeah. And the heading and the subheading I usually write after. Or I might write a rough one and then go back to it. Okay. So we were going to next send you to some breakout rooms to have a go at writing the first 3 paragraphs of your own press release using the 5 W's. Yeah, you're right. They may edit it. Yeah, you're right, Aileen. But sometimes I've written a press release and it's gone in exactly as it is. It depends, if it's a small paper and they don't have many staff. Or if I've written it particularly well. Maybe not this one. Okay. Do you want to put them into breakout rooms, Rory, for 10 minutes and then have a go at writing and talking about how you might write the first 3 paragraphs of your own press release? You can use mine as well if you want to, or not.
Yep. I'm just going to do that now.
Thank you. So how was that?
Quick.
Quick. Oh, it was
quite quick.
You wanted longer.
We literally got the heading and the subheading done for one event.
I was trying to find an old article that I'd just written one. Well, not that old, for a few days, and then there was an older idea. So yeah, really only just kind of decided on the subject as well. Well, I don't know if that was the same with you, Jill, but yeah, I found it actually quite quick, even though at the beginning I was like, I've got loads of time.
Ah, okay. Do you want to report back on your findings, on your,
Well,
maybe you could even wing it and read out what you think your first 3 paragraphs would be?
Go for 2 because, like I said, we literally got the
first 2 paragraphs.
2,
Okay,
and that was it.
Right.
And so we went for Aberdour, were lucky enough to receive some of the funding that's mentioned in this article, and they're going to put on a series of films in their community centre, sort of all focused around, you know, climate action and stuff like that. So we kind of thought we would go big, and the headline was "Community brings the silver screen to Fife."
Nice.
And then
I
we
always
said,
go big. I'm totally for that.
and then we said, Aberdour Community Centre shows a series of films to help families work together to tackle the climate crisis. That's as far as we got.
Okay. So then you'd probably put in your kind of where, when.
Yeah, I mean, we were sort of like, yeah.
That was your what? So you've got your where, when.
Yes, I think we've got the where, we've got the what, we haven't got the when in yet, but that could go in the.
But that's the hard part. So you got the hard part, which is the, you know, like your headline and your your first sentence, and then you're sort of away. Is that how you felt? Do you think you could continue now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've kind of been trying to think about the same way of doing this for the repair cafe that we sort of launched, you know, and trying to think if we're going to do something about that. So yeah, so I don't know. I have to, Angela from Aberdour, whose event it is, she'll have to say whether she can carry on with this one.
I will try. When I'm less tired, I will try. But yes, no, it's good to get an idea. I wouldn't have thought of that, doing it that way. Yes, trying to get a sort of punchy bit, yeah, to get people interested. And yeah, no, it's good. Thank you.
Anybody else? You want to add anything, Louisa, about how yours was?
We're working on that one together in our group.
Okay.
I was with Angela. I think the why was in there as well, though.
Wow.
The why was in the heading, that kind of for climate change. I think it was in there.
Yeah.
So there are several things in there.
and is there any difference what order you put them in, or is that just, it's just that it's all should be in there?
I think it should all be in there. What do you think, Rory? Have you got a point of view on that?
In terms of order, no, I don't think so. I think as long as it's in there, it's kind of. I think a lot of this is kind of art rather than science. So yeah, it'll be kind of what feels right. And
That's right.
yeah, if you can find a nice way to express it, that's probably the main thing.
Would you put the
Yeah.
what it is to hook it to hook people first?
But I do think that you generally should start with who, though. You
Yeah.
know, sort of people from Fife or a group from Dunfermline. I think
Okay.
that's generally the way that you write it when you're writing a newspaper article.
Yeah, I think Louisa's heading. Sorry, Jill's heading was really good. You know, and the thing about it is that, like when Louisa was saying about hooking it, I think that it sounds to me like you have to have a kind of flashy headline to sort of get people to read the thing. Yeah, I don't know, is that right or not?
Yeah, and you might want to write your headline after you've written it or adjust it to be be more succinct, to get more into the headline, so that people have a short attention span, and same with journalists reading press releases. If it grabs them when they first look at it, then they're going to think this is worth putting in the paper. So yeah. Do you have any opinions on the headline, Rory?
Opinions on headlines. Yeah, I mean, I think certainly one thing that you can do as local groups is to mention where it is that you're working. So let's say as community groups in Fife, you have an advantage over lots of the people who will be sending a press release into, say, the Fife Free Press, in that you are the local news that they want to cover. So certainly, in the example where you're talking about Aberdour, making sure Aberdour is in that headline, and that's one of the first things that journalist sees, is going to stand in really good stead, because they'll think, yeah, that's a local story to us. I need to read on to find out what that's about. Whereas obviously, if you didn't mention that, they think, well, it's something about films. Why should I be interested? So yeah, mentioning the local patch can be a real strength.
Yeah, good point.
And puns, I think go a little way. You maybe make somebody, maybe make the journalist smile if you send it to them. If you can do that maybe can hook them in, and they'll want to read on a bit more. So yeah, it'd be interesting. Mention the local area.
Like Super Cali go ballistic, Celtic are atrocious. They wrote that in the paper up in Inverness, and then they were so pleased with it, they actually wrote it on the side of the Inverness Cali Thistle Stadium, because the Sun wrote, I think the Sun maybe wrote that. So yeah, you're right. The pun, excellent. Okay, so any questions?
I did throw one in the chat just now. I was asking, would you send the press release and then follow up with a phone call, or would you just send it and hope for the best?
Following up with a phone call is an excellent idea, definitely. Maybe give them, I don't know, maybe depends on the paper, if it's a daily paper or a weekly paper. Yeah, it's a really good idea to give them a phone call, and then you're building that rapport with a journalist. Get a name, get an individual phone number if you're lucky, and then next time you've got a story, you can go to them, and they'll trust you, and also they might come to you. Give them your number, and next time if something's happening in Aberdour and you're based in Aberdour, they might ring you and say, hey, have you got your chairperson to quote? Can we get a quote from them? Kingdom FM, they love getting they're really good at picking up local stories and putting it on their website and putting it on their news. And if you've got somebody who's prepared to talk on the radio, which is not me, then yeah, you'll get your story on Kingdom FM. So that's, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. How do you like? I have a couple of names now, and we did get in like the Northeast Fife Mail or whatever. But yeah, just that breaking into like actually getting contacts if you don't have them, because I have now got a contact for the Courier, Kingdom FM. I've got no contacts for, but that kind of blind calling of just like contacts on a website, is that still okay to do, or is it better to kind of ask around and try and get a specific name or an introduction?
I do both if I haven't. I mean, I've changed jobs a few times, so I'm always looking in different areas and getting different contacts. So sometimes it's just the news desk, and so I had a contact on the Courier, and I kept blasting her with news press releases, and eventually she emailed me and she said, can you send it to my colleague who's covering that subject, who's covering the environment? And I was told who the environment correspondent was for the Courier, and now it was Joanna Brennan, and so I emailed her, and now she says she's not doing it anymore. So I don't know if they do have a particular person doing it, the environment. But you could always drop me an email and I'll tell you if I've got any contacts.
Okay.
And then and if I'm stuck, I could ask Rory and he might have a contact, although I think you've shared your contact with me.
Oh,
I'm guessing that if you read the paper and you see articles about, say the environment, and see who wrote that, then you've got a name, haven't you? If you can find other similar articles or whatever.
Yeah, I did that. I was working for, it was it was textiles and arts and crafts, and I had to write a press release, and I was like, well, I've never had this area before. So it was a kind of a heritage story. So I Googled it and then came up with a name and found her name and then sent her the story, and it worked. So
good.
yeah, so and then squirrel that away in your contact book for next time you get a story about heritage or something. So
Cool.
yeah. Any other questions? Aileen, you saying you've been approached for quotes. How do you tackle that?
Sometimes I'll answer them, and then other times pass it on to somebody who's a bit better at wording things than myself.
Well, you're obviously not doing very badly if you're asking, if they're asking for your quote. I mean, yeah, like I say, I'm reluctant to be the one to get quoted, but sometimes if you're the one that knows the subject, you've just got to do it. Why not?
If it's my project, I'll promote it as much as I want, but like because I was like just I've been because admin, the home educator and things, been asked a couple of times, but I'll not take that on board. I pass that on to other people. But also I was in a group for about transport or something like that, and I got asked because I'm always posting about stuff like that, but I declined.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough then if it's not your subject. Yeah.
Thanks.
This might be a daft question, but if you then say submit like an article like that, do they sort of have to, but do they tend to just print it as is, or do they tend to, yeah, as you said, edit and doctor it? And in which case, do you get like a proof or anything to see, if it's like a bit of a sometimes controversial subject, depending on which slant a reporter wants to put on it, they can take words and make them sound one way or t'other. I know that Like if it's quite a I mean, it's not, I'm not thinking when we're promoting what we're doing as a community group, but I just wonder sometimes if it's something that's maybe could be perceived as a bit controversial, whether or not.
No, you can't. So once you've sent it to them, it's up to them to use your press release. That's why I provide as much as possible so that it's all there. And if you provide a quote, then they won't, and otherwise they might phone up and speak to somebody on the phone and then take shorthand notes, and they don't reflect, they've taken the wrong part of what you want it's not the key message that you want out there. So if you've written it in a press release, you've got the quote and you've got all the details there, and also that the editor's notes at the end, the sort of detail with your website and your Facebook page and the sort of blurb about your own organization, everything is there. So then they can't muddle it. That's the plan with the press release. It can't be muddled. It can't be misrepresented if it's all there. And I mean, having been a reporter myself, and met many other reporters, I know that most of them they mean well. So if they get it wrong, it's human error, or it's been somebody else has written the headlines, which is what usually happens. The reporter writes the story and the sub-editor writes the headline, and sometimes the headline does not reflect the story, but there's not really much that we can do about that. Although all that I said about the press still being an important place to put your stories, I think the social media is got a way bigger following than local papers. So I mean, and they are struggling to survive. So yeah, they're going to be desperate for your stories. They're not going to want to upset you, and they want you on their side if you're a reliable contact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, putting it in writing is then you've got proof of what you said, like if they misquote you. But I was approached just in the street one time and they totally got my age wrong, they got everything wrong. They didn't say what I said at all. But I didn't bother to try to redress that because it wasn't very important. But how do you go about it if they do misrepresent you?
I suppose I mean, they're just people as well. If it's on the courier, they're just folk trying to do a job. So phone them up and say, you got that wrong. Write them an email and see, how, if it's something that you really want to formally get into, then write to the editor, I suppose.
Yeah, I got I sent something in, I think it was just the Fife Free Press or whatever, and then they quoted it through a spokesman from blah blah blah, and I actually was just like, I don't really care because it was just me saying it, but I think it was just really old-fashioned kind of way of presenting it. So instead of saying my name, they just called me a spokesman, and I don't know, it was just the way they did it was like really old-fashioned and sort of like these bits, but then I just thought, well, that's fine because actually it doesn't really matter. The point was the story, not really anything else. But yeah.
Yeah. And
think about it, Tim.
I heard an example of somebody saying that she was a woman, she was a mother, but she set up a were you there when there was a group, Priya, and it was Sonia, and she said that she set up Fife, she set up her own community social enterprise, and instead of saying, this woman has set up this amazing social enterprise, they said a mum, and she was like, well, why? And that was the headline: mum sets up social enterprise, or a couple of mums.
But it was nothing to do with it.
Yeah, the fact that she was not really the
relevant.
and that was the headline, and I thought, well, that, like I
They were
say,
trying to
that's a
go for
sub-editor that writes the headline, not the journalist who she actually spoke to. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we should keep, on their backs and tell them that they shouldn't be.
Yeah. They were
Um,
probably going for the heartwarming there, actually. Even though it might be a bit patronizing, they were probably thinking, oh, it's a nice story. Like it'll appeal to other
mums.
mums or something. They
Maybe
might, I
that's their
mean, who
target
knows?
audience, mums.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just like soften it or something, or make it like a bit like whatever. But yeah, and I kind of felt like that with my one of like spokesman the whole way through, and I was like, well, they didn't speak to any men at all. But I think that's just an old-fashioned term for like a person, anyone.
That's
It's like
completely
spokesman.
outdated, isn't it? It should be spokesperson.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Um,
I think as well. I mean, what you will see is, I don't think it ever really happens to men. And I mean, there was a kind of recent feature in the Courier about our Fruit Tree for Every Garden in Fife campaign. And they
yeah.
spoke to Dr. Gillian Fife, who is a very experienced, very well, very knowledgeable expert on plants. And then in the headline, there she is. She's the gran that is going around Fife, planting trees
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
in all of these gardens. It was a really great article. Aside from that point, but yeah, just completely undermining somebody's expertise by saying, yeah, of course, and the most important thing is that she's a grandmother. And honestly, I mean, I read papers as much as anybody. I can't think of examples where that happens to men as much as women. So yeah, I would continue to be angry about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Rory.
So actually, just
Yeah.
one quick thing I was going to say, Andy. We're obviously into quite a good discussion. I'm just also aware that people are starting to head off. So I was just going to
Yeah.
launch these feedback questions, which obviously is just so yeah. There's a few polls here. I think there is a mystery third question that is called untitled question. Please don't worry about that too much. But if you can, just answer the first two questions and just give us a bit of feedback on this workshop. That's really helpful for us. Sorry, back to you, Andy.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. I've rambled on, and so yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming. And I'd like to encourage you to take part in our evaluation survey, which I'll send you tomorrow. And Rory could put that in the chat as well if you feel like doing that just now. We've got another 3 courses on Eventbrite. If you want to do the next, we've got newsletters, and we've got Canva, and social media is the next one. And finally, there's the Fife Climate Festival. So if you want a great way to practice having events, then put one on in the Fife Climate Festival, and we will support you with your promotion of your event. Okay, I think that's everybody's participated in the poll. Thank you very much. Shall I end the poll? And yeah, that's my contact details on there if you want to get in touch. And I will stop sharing.